Epstein files historically expose the global Satanism elite as never before. The disclosure of concrete proof that a Luciferian cult of baby-eating bankers, CEOs, politicians, and bureaucrats controls the planet is the real Black Swan event. Ignore it, be sickened by it, or be sick of it. Regardless, the truth is that the Epstein releases, despite redactions, cover-ups, political maneuvering, and continued outright lies and posturing put on by both sides of the uniparty, have exposed the global pedo-cannibal, Satan-worshipping Luciferian elite as never before. And such evil needs the dark to oppress, obsess, infect, and possess. This is an historic loss for the global Satanists and their fallen angel. And it is an undeniable win for godly America, a moral world, and good God. Child trafficking, rape, torture, and murder still go on. The elite still commit abominations even while they lie that they don't. And Epstein was the tip of the iceberg. But we are winning. Just as good Roman citizens used to go to the Colosseum to watch specially trained animals rape scores of virgins, it is now done all in secret. Human nature hasn't changed, but civilization, because of Christianity, has advanced. And Team America's ongoing operations continue to force multiply, as always, behind the scenes. And now, even those who are low information folks are aware of this evil. This negates the evil one's greatest lie, that it does not exist. And once you discern friend from foe, good from evil, the cosmic spiritual war becomes clear. The fight is on and in the open, and the enemy has lost the initiative. And yes, this has happened to his credit, despite all the resistance on Trump's watch. False flags are not the exception. They are the rule. Conspiracy theories are almost always right. The government is nearly always in on it. Despite all the lies, cover-ups, equivocations, and now the revelation that Epstein was likely moved by wheelchair before the suicide was replaced, we, the virtuous populace, the moral center of America, have won a resounding victory. We brought the dark secrets of the elites into the mainstream, and there's nothing that can stop this train now. However, the fight is far from over, and don't expect anyone to give you any awards or even recognition. In fact, you'll have to pay for every good deed, as I know from bitter, long experience. Those you do the most for may never forgive you for everything you have done for them. The globalists are an occult network of organized psychopaths. They seek out people with psychopathic traits, latent or otherwise, in order to recruit and grow their numbers. The common assumption in the general public is that psychopaths are supposed to operate in isolations, like mountain lions, that they do not work together because they are too self-absorbed to organize. History shows, and now game cameras show, that this is simply not true. From the mafia to violent drug cartels to religious cults to authoritarian governments, we have seen psychopaths congregate together and cooperate in the worst moments of our timeline. They do it for mutual gain, and there is an agenda that goes well beyond. It's a far-reaching conspiracy, which the recent release of the Epstein files support totally. The files barely scratch the surface of the evil we are dealing with. It's important to point out that people being named in the Epstein files is meaningless without context. Some public figures like Donald Trump or even Elon Musk are named as interacting with Epstein, but there is zero evidence they participated in anything nefarious. Epstein approached anyone with power and influence and tried to recruit them. Furthermore, anonymous FBI tips from random weirdos do not make up a criminal case, as I've talked to you about many times when I've been a duty agent and had to deal with such types. Others are named in the files in context suggest that they have done some disgusting things. The files represent enough evidence to justify a massive international investigation. They do not represent proof of crimes that would hold up in a court of law, at least so far. But of course, that's because the FBI and DOJ refuse to do any real investigative work. We may never actually see indictments of any Epstein Island regulars. But the disclosure of concrete proof that a Luciferian cult of baby-eating bankers, CEOs, politicians, and bureaucrats controls the planet is the real black swan event. One cannot have a meaningful discussion about the nature of power in modern civilization, post-industrial civilization, without accepting the cold, hard reality that most of the key events in our history have been manipulated by hidden consortiums of elites. We also can't have any legitimate debate about how to solve the problem without accepting the fact that evil is an undeniable constant. Evil is a tangible and autonomous, intelligent entity that wields influence over human society, often using people with inherent weaknesses of the soul as vessels for achieving evil machinations. It is biblical, and our religious ancestors had a much better grasp on the nature of it than we do today, given our futurist propensity to deny anything we can't immediately explain with science or theorize it with scientism. Science, after all, loves to indulge in the disproven theories of evolution while denying the obvious. There must be an intelligent designer for this elegantly designed universe, a creator of the creation and all the marvelous creatures within it. The Epstein files reveal an evil that's beyond reckoning for many people who have never been exposed to research on globalism or have never worked in the field. And even those who have been exposed might find themselves shocked by the discoveries. I was. There are strange mentions of cloning, baby farms for black market sales, and creation of a super race in the files. In other words, the interest of Epstein and associates went well beyond sexual fetishes. The cloning has to have eggs, though. Now, those eggs certainly could have been harvested. But in some instances where they talk about cloning Hillary Clinton, no, those are doubles or masks. Some of the Epstein emails openly discuss sexual abuse and torture of victims brought to the island and murder. The victimization of teens is less protected and easier to prove. Then there's the creepier elements of the files, coded language that is rampant with the Epstein emails, using food as symbolism for clearly illicit contraband. From the Pizzagate information, the John Podesta emails released by WikiLeaks in 2016, we can see that the food code words are common for the globalists and seem to be tied to the abuse of young children. Pizza symbolism has been common with pedophile networks for many years, leading up to the exposure of Pizzagate, and it's also common within the pages of the Epstein files. The word pizza is used as a code at least 900 times in the email. Even worse, the use of beef jerky in the Epstein emails also mentions hundreds of times is specifically disconcerting, including talk of keeping the jerky on ice, a strange obsession with jerky portion weights, lab testing of jerky to prevent sickness, etc. Whatever they are talking about, it's not beef jerky. What kind of edible product would be so criminal as to be hidden in elaborate code speak? The obvious conclusion would be that the jerky is code for human meat, cannibalism. Some might argue that there's no benefits to eating human meat, so why do the elites do it? These critics are operating from a logical perspective and not an occultist perspective. One cannot separate Epstein Island from occultism and still understand what happened there. This is the basis for Hitler as well, the Thule Society. There are deeply disturbed and miserable people, all with father wounds that cannot derive any satisfaction from normal, healthy, emotional, physical relationships. All of their interpersonal relationships are twisted. Need a simple one-word example? The Clintons. From Bill's cigar to Hillary's frazzle drip, they are so infected by evil, they personify it. For the elites who link themselves back to the pagan practices of ancient Babylonian times, from the era of Moloch worshippers, Bohemian Grove, and beyond. The ritual cannibalism is integral to their religion. They believe that human sacrifice gives them power, and this is a common thread within most pagan systems, including Satanism. Luciferianism, Satanism, is an integral element of globalism. The evidence of its practice within globalist circles is immense and cannot be ignored. Some skeptics would denote a separation between Satanism and Luciferianism, but for all interest and purposes, they are intertwined belief systems. Satanists are occupied with the pursuit of pleasure at the expense of morality, while Luciferians are occupied with the pursuit of power and Godhead at the expense of morality. For adherents of both practices, their motto is, "Do what thou wilt." Global elites derive their spiritual ecstasy from the worship of the material and the corruption of the pure. They seek to deconstruct creation and human nature, to prove that all people are as depraved as they are, and that morality is an artificial imitation on power and pleasure. Their system is rife with psychopathic indicators, and I assert that Luciferianism is a religion designed specifically to affirm the destructive tendencies of psychopaths and narcopaths. But what are these tendencies? Psychopaths lack any sense of empathy and function, only parasites who feed on the rest of humanity. They are less than 1% of the total human population, but they cause the vast majority of human tragedies. The average person has a capacity for evil, there's no doubt. That's our human fallen nature, sometimes mislabeled as original sin. People can be driven to all kinds of horrors depending on the circumstances. History is replete with that. But the majority of us have a mechanism called conscience, which stops us from committing evil most of the time. It also makes us to feel guilt when we know we have acted in a destructive manner. If the majority of the population did not have a universal experience of conscience and morality, we would have gone extinct long ago. Globalists, psychopaths, do not have this mechanism. In fact, they view conscience as a hindrance, a trait of the weak, and easily victimized. They are a predatory class of human. They may even not be human at all, but a mutation or cancerous intrusion. When psychopaths achieve overt material wealth, they then have easy access to the resources they need to satisfy their impulses at will. At this stage in the evolution of a psychopath, they have a tendency to become bored. They begin to chase increasing depravity and darkness in search of a greater dopamine fix. The more degenerate and taboo the activity, the more exciting it is, just like serial killers, because they are. But these are nothing but individual motivations and personal addictions. What are the ambitions and drives of the organized cabal, as in Kabbalah? Part of the allure of occultism is the glee some people feel when they believe they are superior to common man. Occult groups sell their members on the notion they will be a set-apart elite when they join with the keeper of these secrets. And these are the Ivy League secret society from the beginning. When we read the numerous emails tied to Epstein, as well as his island and his ranch in New Mexico, the people who correspond with him seem childish and giddy. They snicker like adolescent brats when they engage in codes and riddles. They're committing atrocities beyond the comprehension of the average man, and they feel because they are basking in the cloak and dagger of it all. This might be a hard thing to reconcile for many people in the conspiracy field, but the cabal is not made up of darkly brilliant minds imposing cold and calculating moves. Rather, it is mostly made up of egomaniac narcissists giggling like retards as they revel in their delusions of grandeur. If you saw how these people behave behind the scenes, you would probably feel embarrassed for them and feel like an idiot for imagining them to be cunning or untouchable masterminds. Without their money and the collective protection of their coven, they are tiny people without merit, living a meaningless existence. That said, make no mistake, it's the putrid sociopathy of their childishness that makes them exceedingly dangerous. So infantile while rejoicing in the blood of innocence requires a diabolical and demonic mind. Epstein Island was a test, a venue where evil is concentrated and people with apprehensions are filtered away. The worst of the worst likely moved on to even more vile grounds, hidden in plain sight around the world. The reason the Epstein files matter is because they opened the door to a wider investigation of the globalist networks and their horrific playgrounds. To end this, we need to reestablish a virtuous populace based on Christic morals. It is already happening among a few, such as myself, Candace, and Tucker, people who are able to think like occultists while using modern investigative methods in order to track down these networks and erase them from the earth. The governments won't do it because they are in on it. And this is taken from a modified Discern report, Epstein Island, the Gateway to the Psychology of Evil. But that is my latest Substack. Please subscribe to that. Epstein Files Historically Expose the Global Satanist Elite as Never Before. Quick health update, because I know a lot of you are asking. Thank you for your concern and your prayers. I just did even a breathalyzer treatment of oregano oil just before the show. I'm on all kinds of drugs and natural cures, and I am doing better. I had a fever-free night finally, and that goes back to my careers in the military, which were very physically stressful, and then my intelligence career in the DIA, which is very emotionally stressful, and then my DEA career, which was both physically and mentally stressful. When I was a whistleblower and when they were coming after me back in the day, I had 2 shoulder surgeries, and then I was got a lung infection and was hospitalized for 2 weeks and have a fever for 3. It's not that bad this time, but my body does not respond to stress the way it used to. So that I know I mention that because I know a lot of you have been asking about that, and I appreciate your prayers and calls. But everything that I can do, I am doing. My wonderful wife is my medical advocate, and very, very involved in that as well. Earl Jackson, where are the arrests? Well, as I just said, we may not see any arrests at all. But the important thing is they are exposed as never before. Really, the FBI is lying about everything. Kash Patel has clearly perjured himself, but that's no big surprise. Ray did the same thing. You've got to stop thinking as this is Trump's DOJ, Trump's FBI opposed to Biden's DOJ, opposed to Biden's FBI. The FBI works for the FBI. The FBI is part of the Praetorian Guard puppet masters that do the cover-ups. That's very clear. And Ro Khanna and Congressman Massey, along with Candace's great work, has really mobilized the internet to do investigative work. That's really replaced the FBI as an investigative entity completely. It is really irrelevant. But I'm also going to cover. But anyway, improving on health, but I still got to take it easy. I did 1 kids class this week and got sick again, so I've canceled all my online classes this week to continue to rest and recover as per my wife's request. And so the show will be probably a little briefer today as well. So I appreciate your support and bearing with me on all of that. Okay, I'm glad you guys are responding there. Well, I can take some questions today as we continue, but also I'm going to cover is CIA's CNN is falling fast, along with fake news. An eyewitness prison guard says Epstein escaped. Boller has been booted from the White House Religious Liberty Commission. Epstein files Affirm my Steve Bannon analysis as a fraudster. So we're going to get into all of that. But we're first, please support my sponsors at beready123.com. You can get the best Iridium phone there is out there. This is the excellent sat phone that they have. And that is free with a 2-year, $95 a month, I believe. But if you use the code Prather, you can get 10% off any purchase. Can't afford that, you can always get a nice EMF beanie. They have t-shirts. They have ballistic little packs that are very handy. There's the ballistic panel right in there. Generators, lots of great items as well. So CIA's CNN is falling fast. CNN's iconic homosexual leftist Anderson Cooper interned at the CIA before CNN. There's only 2 jobs, CIA and CNN. And really, they've never changed. This long-time deep state mouthpiece is failing, and like Fox fake news, will never rise again. The deep state is losing information dominance. To be sure, they have already infilled the likes of Nick Fuentes, but this is still a 5G war win. That's my emphasis today, is we are winning. CNN has lost nearly 2/3 of its viewership since 2016. The decrease from roughly 1.3 million in 2016 to 553,000 now is fueling rumors of possible network sale, something CNN's Up for Grabs, the parent company, has vehemently denied. The results recorded this month by Nielsen are actually an improvement from January, when stars like Jake Tapper, Anderson Cooper, Aaron Burnett, and Kathleen Collins only secured 488,000 sets of eyes. The network's daytime lineup has seen similar decline as hosts such as Wolf Blitzer failed to move the needle, dropping from 752,000 and 433,000. When compared to the same part of the year in 2021, the drops were even more pronounced, 71% for primetime and 73% for the day. Several network executives have said that the results were worrisome. A CNN source, meanwhile, blamed the poor showing on audiences consuming news through alternative means. But the important thing is the information operation dominance through the mainstream fake news that is controlled by the deep state Praetorian Guard completely. And that includes Newsmax, that includes Fox Fake News, that includes CNN, is dying. And the alternative sources are where all that's going. Now, they, again, like I've said with Nick Fuentes, they have infiltrated those very completely, but they are on much more of a level playing field. Although certainly that's why I'm throttled back on all channels, even though I've broken lots of major stories over the years. And then all kinds of startups like Nick Fuentes are huge. Why? Because they are being funded and being not being censored, but push. Tonak says Pam Bunny responds with how well stock market is doing when asked when she would investigate billionaires. Yeah, that's all a show. She would not answer a question. And by the way, that's not a good look before Congress. So I've been at the front table in federal felony trials where I've put drug dealers away for 30 years. And of course, I was slandered, but never even charged and never even convicted of anything. But when you are argumentative like that, that lessens your rapport with viewership. It is not a good look. It's not something you would ever really want to do. And it shows more of her amateurish behavior, where she has reversed herself over and over. But this is true across the board. You can't get any more amateurish than Patel, bug-eyed Patel, standing there stiffly behind Trump, is a total idiot. And Bongino was a moron as well. And anybody coming back to listen to him again is a fool. I believe Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes are unfortunately now paid shills of the machine. It's obvious. It's very sad. In Alex Jones' case, he's the big, as Rush Limbaugh was the father of conservative radio. And my show originally didn't come on until after his ended. And my original website said Rush should do his pre-show lineup with you because you're months ahead of him. I took that as a big compliment. But after he passed, somebody thought I was insulting him, so I took it down. But Alex Jones is really the grandfather of the alternative news, infiltrating Bohemian Grove. But unfortunately, it appears he has sold off. And I've been on the InfoWars on the Alex Jones show. But that's the whole point, is you have to really search out truth today. Anyway, Epstein documents released inadvertently ID the prison guard who claimed Epstein transferred out of the MCC before alleged suicide. And this is somebody who sends me stuff anonymously through the mail, so appreciate it. The individual who anonymously posted on 4chan the morning of Epstein's death, August 10th, 2019, claiming he witnessed weird happenings at the prison before Epstein's death, has been identified in the Epstein files. Roberto Grijalva, an officer at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, MCC in New York, has been identified as the anonymous prison employee who posted claiming Epstein left his cell Friday evening shackled in a wheelchair. Of course, the videos were turned off and disappeared. The day after Epstein's death, U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman of the Southern District of New York opened a grand jury proceeding and subpoenaed 4chan, Apple, AT&T, and Citibank for records aiming to uncover Grijalva's identity following the anonymous 4chan post. Grijalva's name is not redacted on his bank records included in the SDNY subpoena response from Citibank for his 4chan post, and his ties to the prison officer Roberto Grijalva, whose statements were released as part of the prison's investigation into Epstein's death. This is huge. We now have validation. The 4chan post from 8/10/2019 is a legitimate eyewitness account from an MCC prison official that Epstein may have been switched out before news broke of his alleged suicide. And the actual 4chan post says, not saying anything after this. Please do not try to dox me. But last night at 04:15, after the 04:15 count, they took him medical in a wheelchair, front cuffed, that is cuffed in the front. But not one triage nurse says they spoke to him. Next thing we know, a trip van shows up. We do not know the releases on the weekends unless the judge orders it. Next thing we know, he's put in a single man cell and hangs himself. Here's the thing. The trip van did not sign in, and we did not record the plate number. And a guy in a green dress military outfit, that's Army, was in the back of the van, according to the tower guy, who let him through the gate. You guys, I am shaking right now, but I think they switched him out. So clearly, again, this is government intervention. Now, my original intelligence said that it was a MI6 operative that came through the vents. That appears to be wrong now. So I want to always admit when I am wrong, but it certainly looks like the U.S. government, including somebody at least in a Army uniform. And you got to remember, CIA will often put on Army uniforms. They'll often put on DEA credentials and badges. Again, the great movie to see that is Spartan with Val Kilmer, if you want to see a shadow agent change. And I have some experience in that because I was dual credentialed at the simultaneously with DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, Special Agent credentials, and Defense Intelligence Agencies, DIA, intelligence officer credentials, while I was also in a Special Operations Intelligence unit. So, all my credentials were real in that regard. The second page of the Citibank subpoena compliance open list the name of the prison guard at the bottom. And there is a U.S. government memo proving the same guard was directly involved with Epstein. Ergo, it appears the posting on 4chan came from a prison guard working in MCC directly involved with Epstein, a guard in a position to see and know firsthand that Epstein was moved out of the MCC before his alleged death. And of course, we know that Trump is considering pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, and that she's gotten preferential treatment, even though she should not have as well. And this is all showing, again, that the government is in on it and corrupt as well. Hey, also remember to get your Stay Brewed coffee at teamamerica.com. Save 20%, teamamerica.com, or you can go to jeffreyprather.com and you can get Prather private label. But after so many years of bad soldier coffee, cop coffee, spy coffee, Indian coffee, I'm now a coffee snob, and this is the best coffee by a good Christian constitutionalist family, not the Black Rifle fakes that wouldn't back Kyle Rittenhouse. But highly advise you to go there for that as well. So this has caused some. This is very sad. Boller booted from the White House Religious Liberty Commission. Although she referred to Catholic doctrine, which relies on New Testament scripture, Boller is correct in saying that those following Christ are the inheritors of Abraham and the new Israel. Her contention that Jews killed Jesus is wrong. However, her removal now makes the commission a star, pun intended, chamber. So Carrie Prejean Boller has been removed from the White House Religious Liberty Commission after Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who chairs the body, accused her of trying to hijack a hearing on anti-Semitism. No member of the commission has a right to hijack a hearing for their own personal and political agenda on anything. This is clearly without question what happened Monday in our hearing on anti-Semitism in America. This was my decision, Patrick wrote. He made the announcement after Boller wrote War in America and Palestinian flag pin to the hearing, stirred controversy for steering the conversation towards the definition of anti-Semitism and how it relates to Israel, which of course is totally legitimate. And she says, I'm Catholic and Catholics do not embrace Zionism. Just so you know, so are all Catholics anti-Semitites, according to you. She asked Rabbi Ari Berman, the president of Yeshiva University. She pressed another witness, Shabbos Kestabam, minutes later about the ongoing war in Gaza. Since we've mentioned Israel a total of 17 times, are you willing to condemn what Israel has done in Gaza? Boller asked Kestenbaum, a Jewish American activist who sued Harvard in 2024 over their alleged failure to protect students against anti-Semitism. A terse back and forth began before Patrick stepped in and brought it to a halt. Boller resisted calls to resign from the commission in the immediate aftermath of the hearing and said she will never bend a knee to the state of Israel. So people are sending me lots of scripture about Thessalonians, and they're the blood libel, let the blood of him be on us and our children. But in actual fact, the Romans government executed Yeshua. Or you could say the Jewish theocracy of the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees had him executed because of the popularity he had with the Jewish people. This is scriptural. This is historical. And just because Thessalonians and other scriptures say the Jews killed him, it's more correct to say the Jews had him killed. But I'm not really wanting to get into theological arguments. But it is very important to be accurate about all of this. By the way, who's taking care of me is meehanmd.com, hero Dr. Terry Lakin, doing everything he can for me. And they take remote patients all the time. And while he's a DO, he really is involved in alternate medicine. And of course, he's the colonel who went to prison rather than go along with the Obama false presidency and fake birth certificate. He just never had proof of any of that. So the final story I wanted to get into was to continue the global reveal of the fakes and fraudsters out there. So I've been to events with Steve Bannon. I was invited to a VIP event, and the way to tell how people really are is in how they conduct themselves in private. When I was doing speaking, there were lots of people who wanted to talk to me. There was a lady whose son had been killed by a DEA task force. I always took time and tried to help her. Bannon came into this VIP thing, which I guess you paid extra. I was invited to, didn't talk to anybody. Did a little photo thing and then went on. And also came in where everybody was dressed up very nice, came in looking real slovenly. So that really tells you a lot about people. I've talked about how Reagan was very personable with guards. I've talked about different people I've known, movie stars who have been, kind behind the scenes. And so that's my personal anecdotal evaluation. But now I want to back it up because I've long said many of the things that are coming out in the Epstein files I talked about a long time ago. And I've talked about this too. So in 2006, Bannon used his background as an investment banker to secure $60 million investment with Goldman Sachs into Internet Gaming Entertainment, IGE. While IGE was marketed as a marketplace for virtual currency, it functioned as a primary off-ramp for massive illicit ecosystem that thrived on identity theft and financial fraud. And this is probably why I've never been invited onto Steve Bannon. He always has young, naive girls in particular on. By providing a liquid market for virtual gold, IGE effectively became a clearinghouse for value generated through global identity theft. Bannon did not just join this company, he eventually became its CEO under the rebranded name Affinity Media. Bannon's entry into Donald Trump's inner circle was not born of ideological loyalty. It was a calculated move by a man who saw a new vessel for the digital energy he had studied in the World of Warcraft forums. Before he was architect of the MAGA movement, Bannon expressed deep skepticism of the very people he would later serve. In Michael Wolff's book, Fire and Fury, Bannon is quoted describing the 2016 Trump Tower meeting with Russian representatives as treasonous and unpatriotic. He reportedly viewed the Trump circle as a semi-criminal enterprise, later remarking that one could drop the semi part. And of course, I've been all over how Putin and Russia are anti-tranny, anti-child trafficking, and anti-Satanism and supporting the traditional Russian Orthodox Church, which is why the CIA goes after them, and also why the FBI goes after the Catholic Church in the West and considers them both very dangerous. To bridge the gap between niche internet subcultures and mainstream influence, Bannon utilized Milo Yiannopoulos as a de facto recruiter. Yiannopoulos actively courted disenfranchised young men by blending radical rhetoric with free speech posturing of a digital troll culture. This ecosystem, supported by Mercer's family financial backing for projects like Milo's Dangerous, became a professional launchpad for new generations of influence. Milo served as the primary scout and public face. Then Nick Fuentes emerged from the movement's fringes to lead a dedicated youth-oriented, nationalist base. Lauren Southern gained prominence from the digital infrastructure and audience networks Bannon helped create. The Inner Circle, many others, including those who wrote Dangerous, were deeply embedded in the group chats and functioned in the movement's war rooms. The enduring influence Bannon yields is rarely a product of genuine loyalty. It is built on a foundation of professional debt. The Bannon-Mercer pipeline produced a generation of influencers who are effectively gagged by their own successes. To call out Bannon is to attack the great architect of their own careers. Even as the evidence became undeniable, the silence persisted. In February 2025, Bannon entered a felony guilty plea for scheme to defraud in a New York state court. He admitted to deceiving thousands of donors who believed their money was building a border wall, while he was instead diverting those funds to enrich himself and his associates. Bannon's playbook reached its most visible form with the We Build the Wall campaign. In 2020, Bannon and others were arrested on federal charges of conspiracy to commit mail fraud and money laundering. They allegedly looted the charity for personal gain after promising donors that all contributions would go towards construction. And remember, the DOJ and the DEA and Eric Holder and Michelle Leonard, the head of the DEA, all came after me, and I was never even charged, much less convicted. They slandered the hell out of me all over the internet via cyberstalkers such as Jared Armitage. But why couldn't they get me? Because there was nothing to get me on. The federal loophole, while Bannon received a federal pardon from Donald Trump in 2021, sparing him from that specific trial, his co-defendants were not so lucky. In 2022, Bannon was charged in New York State court, where pardons do not apply, with money laundering and conspiracy. In February 2025, Bannon pleaded guilty to a fraud charge related to the scheme and was sentenced to 3 years of conditional discharge. The trajectory of Bannon's gray zone operations peaked through his partnership with Miles Guo, known as Guo Wenyi, a self-exiled Chinese fake so-called billionaire who cultivated a massive online following as a vocal critic of the Chinese Communist Party. In 2020, Bannon and Gao launched a joint initiative to overthrow the Chinese government, declaring a new federal state of China during the event staged on Guo's luxury yacht in New York. And you always saw the photos of Guo. Is real weird, too, because it wasn't even explained on Bannon's show, if you recall. This partnership formed the foundation for a sprawling financial ecosystem that federal prosecutors would later describe as $1 billion fraud conspiracy. Bannon and Guo co-funded GTV Media Group, a video sharing platform promoted as a safe haven from CCP censorship. They utilized GTV and other entities such as the Himalaya Farm Alliance and the Himalaya Exchange to solicit investments from hundreds of thousands of online followers. This is just like the Christmongers, Get Your Hot Jesus Here, Kenneth Copeland, Joel, what's his name? The GTV Media Group raised approximately $452 million through unregistered stock offerings between April and June 2020. Himalaya Exchange, a cryptocurrency ecosystem featuring H-Coin, Himalaya Coin, while falsely claimed this asset was 20% backed by gold, personally guaranteed that investors would not lose money. G clubs, an inclusive membership that funneled millions into accounts controlled by Guo for personal use. In July 2024, a New York jury convicted Miles Guo on 9 of 12 criminal counts, including racketeering conspiracy, wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. Prosecutors provided evidence that Guo used investor funds to finance a lavish lifestyle, including a 50,000 square foot mansion, a $3.5 million Ferrari, and a $37 million luxury yacht, which is often featured on Bannon's War Room show. The relationship between the two men was punctuated by Bannon's own legal troubles. In August 2020, federal authorities arrested Bannon while he was aboard Guo's yacht, the Lady May, in connection with his role in the We Build the Wall fundraising effort. Bannon had reportedly signed a $1 million annual contract on Guo Media in 2018 to act as a consultant and introduce the platform to media personalities. The friction between Bannon and Elon Musk and other high-profile Trump allies reached a boiling point in 2025. Following Bannon's release from prison and subsequent guilty plea, he launched a series of attacks on Elon Musk, calling him a parasitic, illegal immigrant and truly evil. Bannon pledged to run Musk out of the administration and accused the tech mogul of being an agent and influence of the Chinese Communist Party. I remember this very clearly. I hope you do too. Musk did not remain silent in a notable exchange during the summer. Musk referred to him as a criminal and dismissively tweeting Bannon as a great talker, not a doer. The feud escalated with the release of the Epstein files, which confirmed Bannon was on Jeffrey Epstein's schedule for a breakfast in February 2019. More importantly, the release included the documentary project, which I've watched film between 2016 and 2019, which Bannon produced for the goal of restoring Epstein's reputation, where he's gushing about how intelligent he is and how wonderful, and while also asking him if he's actually the personification of the devil. This revelation provided Musk with the ultimate leverage to cast Bannon out of the administration's inner circle. If his guilty plea was the coffin, his now exposed ties to Jeffrey Epstein is the nail in the hammer to shut his career. But just like with Mangino, there are people who still are listening, and I have people says, "Don't you dare talk about Bannon." So much for you telling me not to talk about Bannon. And this is why I am throttled, because I am going to tell you the ruthless truth, and you're not going to be able to hide behind false messiahs such as Bannon and Trump. So that's what I wanted to cover today. I do want to thank you all for your prayers and concerns. I am doing better. But I'm going to continue to take it easy so I don't regress. And I've already canceled some guest appearances this week, and I'm going to cancel the rest of my online classes this week as well. So thank you for that. Please bear with me. And hopefully by next week, I'll be back up to steam. And I may have guests back up on that time as well. But please, if you can, subscribe to my YouTube channel, which I've put in the chat. Subscribe to Rumble and X as well. And if you can do even more, go support the show at jeffreyprather.com or join me at patreon.com/jeffreyprather, where I regularly talk with my patrons, or at jeffreyprather.locals.com. So remember, freedom is never given. It is earned, fought for, won, and taken. So take it.